3, 2, 1. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Inside. Well, actually, we should call it Delusions of Grandeur. And this is Boris and Dave coming back at you and continuing our discussions on films that have to do with Psycho. And this is Gus Van Sant's remake of Psycho from 1998. And let me just tell you what IMDb says about the film. A young female embezzler arrives at the Bates Motel, which has terrible secrets of its own. And I figured that for those of you who have not yet seen the trailer for this film, I have it for you. So, ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause for 1998's Psycho.
Allow them to believe that I would commit murder.
Boy's best friend is his mother. She just goes a little mad sometimes.
Mother! Oh, God! Mother!
Alrighty. So, let's go into first impressions. What did you think about that trailer, by the way?
About the trailer, well, it's definitely interesting. It can definitely get a new person who didn't watch the original interested in this version. But one issue I have with it kind of spoils that something wrong with Norman, because when you watch the movie for the first time, if you don't know what to expect, you are supposed to suspect Norman's mother, not Norman himself. Well, okay, this trailer does imply that the mother might be involved, but there are these shots where Norman appears out of his mind, so it very much gives away that something is wrong with him as well. In my opinion, the audience shouldn't know before starting to watch the movie.
Okay. So in this film, we have stars Vince Vaughn, Anne Hecht, Julianne Moore, Viggo Mortensen, William H. Macy, Robert Forster, Philip Baker Hall, Anne Haney, Chad Everett, Rance Howard, Rita Wilson, James Remar, James LaGrosse, among others. And Vince Vaughn plays the Norman Bates of this film. What do you think of his rendition of Norman Bates as a character?
Well, if I can be honest, I think he's an okay actor generally, but I personally think he wasn't a good choice for this particular character. Because I found myself thinking of the guy who played the young Norman in the flashback scenes in Psycho 4. What's his name? Henry Thomas, I think. He really looked quite a bit like a younger Anthony Perkins, and I really felt like if this movie is from 1998, then uh, by that time Henry Thomas probably aged quite as much as he would have needed to play Norman in this movie, and I think they should have asked him. He would have done a good job playing the role, and he would look much more the way I and everyone who saw the original movies imagines Norman Bates. That's my opinion, at least. Although that's nothing against the actor, this one whom they cast. He's like I said, he's not a bad actor generally, but I think he shouldn't have played this particular character.
I have to agree. Now, was this a first time watch for you?
Well,
As of like this morning or whatnot?
well, yes, I watched it once earlier today, and now with you again. So, yeah.
Okay. Me, I saw this when it came out, not in the theater. I had it as a VHS at one point. Mainly collected it at the time because I was definitely into the Psycho franchise. And I was curious about the film, and I've seen it once since then on DVD, and with my fiance, and then here again with you. So this is probably my third time watching the film, and maybe I've caught bits and pieces of it on TV over time. But my thoughts on this is that, well, I know that this film was definitely not well received. In fact, it got 3 golden raspberries at the time, and Anne Heck got a Worst Actress award at the time. And I know that this film, no matter what, has received mixed reviews, and more so in the negative than in the positive. But as far as my viewpoint on this, I didn't mind some of the shot-for-shot scenes. As far as Anne Heck, I don't think that it was entirely bad acting. I do think that it was a little little off that she was smiling through the whole scene with Viggo Mortensen in the very beginning as Samuel. What was his name? I think his name was Samuel Loomis. And you get a sense that oh God, the god awful pink dress that she was wearing, just bad clothes. I don't know what, but I would never get caught dead or nor let my fiance wear that kind of clothing. But I mean, the clothing of the period was. See, this was set in 1998, but the clothing was not of 1998. A period. That's one thing I noticed. The people that were here, they were wearing clothes that they might have worn in the 60s. You know, and that's one thing I noticed. As far as the famous shower scene that we see in this particular adaptation, I think it was different to show how the pupils dilated down. You know, you didn't see that in the original Psycho, and I thought that was an interesting take on the whole thing. And I like the fact that you actually do see gashes where on her body to show that, you know, she was actually stabbed, whereas in the original Psycho, you just see camera movements, which is awesome. It was an awesome shot at the time. You know, with the music, you know, that was played and all that jazz. You get very quick camera moments. You see blood go into the shower in the original shower scene, but you don't get to see any of that, any of the marks that he made. So I like the fact that that the director showed that something did happen to her body. As far as everything else, I was okay with most of it.
Well, actually, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, in my opinion, the critics seem to be very harsh, but that's what usually happens with remakes and sequels. But in my opinion, my only issue with this movie was, as I mentioned, the actor they cast to play Norman. Aside from that, I really didn't think it was bad at all. It doesn't deserve all those negative reviews.
I will say this as far as Vince Vaughn's character, the laughs that he would laugh, those laughs seemed forced, like they weren't natural to him. Which you would think that if Norman was had that kind of a personality where he was just wholesome, leave it to Beaver, kind of, you know, mentality, where he was just your natural Southern boy who grew up to be best friend to his mother, you know, kind of a thing. And you think that, you know, the laugh would come natural, and I just don't see that coming from him. I feel, at least as a person, I feel like in reality he wouldn't have acted that way, and I feel like those moments were forced. So to me, I just wasn't sold on his moments as the character Norman. As far as once Anne Heck got to the hotel, I think that's when her acting shone a little bit more. And I guess some people consider the shower scene as more of an assassination.
Well,
but what do you think? Is it a murder or an assassination?
but, but I guess it's whatever it was in the first movie. I'm not sure I know the difference between those words because in Croatian we have only one word for both. So, uh,
Well,
so
what one thing I'd like to say is some of the things that were changed in the film were because of the time frame in which they set this. They set this in the 90s, and you can tell that because the amount of the money that was stolen from the one dude ended up being 400,000 instead of what was it, 40,000, and then
I don't remember what it was in the original.
also the price of how much the used car was, and how much she was given for her original car when she stopped by the place to sell her car. But other than that, I think those were some of the main changes. What did you think about those changes?
Well, they seemed. I'm sorry. They seemed like rather small changes. Actually, I didn't even notice them.
Okay. So this is the basic plot of the film from my point of view. So apparently we have this secretary to a bank by the name of Marion Crane, who is played by Anne Heck, and she is having a relationship with a married man, and from what I understand, she goes into work, suddenly comes across this man that just wants to drop some money on the bank. She's given the responsibility of taking it to where it needs to go, and the money just kind of speaks to her at that moment. So she takes the money and runs. And it's during this traveling moment that we get the same kind of people, where we've got a nondescript officer with the one-way eyeglasses that stops her after she's spent the night on the road, which I guess to him, coming from a small town, is kind of mysterious. So he follows her, and he just, I guess something is off about Miss Crane, and she ultimately, because of the fear, I guess, she trades in her car and gets another one, and continues on her way 15 miles from Fairview to a small little motel called the Bates Motel. And that's where she ends up running into the owner of the hotel, which I guess he kind of lives with his mother behind the place. And what do you think of these beginning scenes in this particular remake? Do you think that these scenes played well? I know that that a lot of people say that this film was shot for shot, like done almost exactly like the original, and that is one of the main hiccups that people tend to have. What do you think?
Well, I think, but don't get me wrong, that was also, if I remember correctly, what I said about the original. That beginning drags on a bit too long for my personal tastes, but yes, that's how it was in the original, and they wanted the remake to be as similar as possible. Then it makes sense that they did it all the way they did. Now, as far as what you said about the movie being a shot for shot remake and people complaining about that, I guess when it comes to remakes, you can never keep everyone happy, because if it wasn't like this, if things were different, then there would be people saying, "How could you do that? That's not how they did it in the original. This is wrong." Like with remakes, you can never make everyone happy.
Well, I can understand having to change the things that Gus Van Sant did. Um, my problem is more in Vince Vaughn's acting of the whole process. What's interesting to me is how much remorse he or feelings he seems to be feeling while he's cleaning up his mess. So basically, what happens here is Marion Crane ends up at Bates Motel, and he invites her over for dinner because I guess the nearest place of eatery is like 10 miles out or whatnot, and so he decides to, invite her over. Well, this doesn't exactly bode well for apparently his mother, and so he ends up inviting her into the back parlor of the Bates Motel, and from what I understand, there are a lot more creatures in this parlor that apparently Boris here was quite surprised that there were quite a number of these creatures. Why don't you tell us about these creatures?
Well, yeah, one thing I noticed, well, that is, unless I remember it wrongly from the original, but in the original, Norman had all those stuffed birds. And from what I remember, they were all different kinds of birds. And in this movie, many of those birds were owls. I think he didn't have so many owls in the original, unless I remember it wrongly. And I kind of noticed that because I'm a really big fan of owls.
Are you sure you're not related to Norman Bates? Because I could have sworn I saw a few creatures nearby you earlier. Why don't you show us your collection?
So you notice that the owl I usually have in the background there, that it's not here now, huh?
No, it's not. Did it
Well,
fly away?
well, it kind of did. I can show you where it is now. Do you see it? It's this one.
Hoot! All kinds of hoots.
Yeah.
So not quite the Norman Bates owl collection, but definitely quite a few owls there, eh?
Yeah. Fortunately, I don't stuff birds or anything like that. Actually, I'm not a fan of taxidermy, especially. I especially don't like when people kill animals in order to make something like that out of them, if you understand. But yeah, I
Well,
really like
if you
owls
ended
a lot.
if you ended up finding an owl on the roadside, you're telling me you wouldn't like find someone to stuff it for you?
Well, in that case, it's different. If it was already dead, and I have an opportunity to kind of bring it back to life, as Norman said in some other movies,
It's
then
alive.
yeah, in that case, I would.
It's alive.
Yeah.
I've created a monster. No, just wrong
Yeah,
movie,
but
but yeah. So when Norman brings back Miss Marion Crane to have a couple of sandwiches. There are definitely more owls in the room than there were in the original, and I think it's like ultimately uberly more creepy because of that. Even though seeing the birds all stuffed like they were in the original was creepy enough. Having some of the same birds all around in different stances, that was a little bit creepy. What do you think?
Well, actually, I didn't get the impression that this version was creepier than the original only because more birds or owls. Why do you actually think that that would make it creepier? Although I did find both versions a bit creepy because, as I said, I really don't like the idea of killing animals in order to do something like that with them. That's definitely not a good reason to kill an animal. Which is the reason why I found both versions a bit off-putting, but I do actually think that both owls that make the original.
Yeah, but ultimately, shortly after that, she bids him good night, and he proceeds to apparently he's got an eye peephole that he can see in. He watches her undress, and he does something here that I don't think Norman did in the other one. At least Anthony Perkins didn't take out his wanker and wank off a little bit, but this one he did.
Yeah.
In this one he did. And what do you think about that? That he actually just, took out his piece and just had at it.
I guess that's something that many men. I mean, if he already made that call there for that particular purpose, then it's kind of logical that he would do that while peeping through that hole.
And apparently, his mother wasn't very happy with him having these feelings for this Miss Crane. So while Miss Crane was preparing for the shower, got in, I guess his mother paid her a visit, did she not?
In a way, yeah. That's what brings us to the iconic scene of versions.
Oh yeah, and the music here is composed or recomposed by Danny Elfman, who, as we well know, he composed the music for Batman and definitely other films. Danny Elfman was in the band Oingo Boingo, and so he definitely has been part of an influence in horror films for quite some time. But I would call this a mainstream horror film, to be honest. But what did you think about the music? Well, we'll get to that. We'll talk about that after we get through the plot. So after he's cleaned up her body and sent her, and with her things, including the money that was stolen inside a newspaper, he evidently has this swamp that he can bury things in. It's more like a bog, and he's able to get rid of all the evidence that she evidently had. Well, not all, because eventually, several people start looking for her. A week later, we get Detective Arbogast, who's played by William H. Macy, which those of you who might have seen our discussion on Pleasantville, he played the father figure of the family for Bud in Pleasantville. So I think he also played in Fargo, as well as many other films. But what did you think about this particular Detective Arbogast?
Well, he was okay, pretty much, from what I remember, consistent with the original version of the character. Maybe this actor was a bit younger than the other one had of him, but that's fine. He still did the same job as a character, and the actor did a good job playing the role. But well, one thing I noticed regarding him was the scene when he was getting killed, when he was falling down the stairs. It looked a bit more realistic in this version than in the original, but that also makes sense when this is a newer movie and things probably weren't so easy to portray back in 1960.
Well, I think that Gus Van Sant used some subliminal video things. I mean, at one moment you got a small little snippet of apparently a woman that was naked and she and her mouth was taped shut or something like that. So that was
actually, I think if I remember correctly, that she had something like a black mask on her eyes or something like that.
I thought that she was gagged.
Well, I'm not sure. I would have to Google it to see exactly what it was.
But the next image that I think we saw was like of a cow standing in the middle of the road, and this was all while he was falling down the staircase, apparently. But you still get that same sense of vertigo that he was falling backwards down these stairs to his death. So, what did you think of that moment when Arbogast was killed? Did you get a sense that this death was done better, or do you think it was done worse than as it was done by Alfred Hitchcock versus Gus Van Sant?
Well, I guess this version looked a bit more realistic, but like I said, that makes sense because something like that fall down the stairs back in the 1960s probably wasn't easy to portray something like that on screen without literally pushing a man down the stairs. And as far as these flashbacks or whatever it was, the picture of that woman and some other things that appeared for brief moments, actually, I didn't end up understanding the meaning of those images. But now, when you show the trailer, those images appeared, and it was there was some text in the trailer saying that that was what Nolan's mind looked like. So maybe it was some visualization of Norman's mental state or something. I'm not sure.
I think that's very well close to the truth. I think that if we really looked inside Norman Bates' mind, it would be a fucking mess. I mean, we wouldn't know what was right and what was wrong. Wrong, and I know I've seen several films where they have to do with the inside of people's minds, and I thought that it was interesting portrayal um, since it was supposedly a scene that was being redone by someone. And I thought it was maybe a few more images than that I would have added, but you know, you wanted to get a feeling of what was going through his mind as he was killing Arbogast. So
Yeah, that really was an interesting addition. For a moment, it reminded me of the cursed videotape from The Ring, which is interesting now. And when you showed me the trailer, and it was said that those images were from Norman's mind, and those who saw The Ring know that. The images on that tape were actual images from Samara's mind as she was dying in the well.
correct, and those might have been images that he might have been seeing before he died, possibly, because him being a private investigator, he might have been involved in some police investigations in his life, or it could mean a combination between a wild sex creature and being as soft and silent as a cow, and or as yeah, I mean, it's interpretive. That's the thing as to what was being portrayed, and I think the message was relayed well enough that okay, this man was dying, so
Yeah.
he was going to die, no matter what. So he was doomed.
Yeah, and especially those of us who were familiar with the original, we saw it coming, of course.
Well, and I think one of the things that I was getting out of Norman Bates this time is when he killed Marion Crane. It appears to be like his first victim that maybe he might have been covering up for his mother or whatnot, because even though supposedly he'd never killed anyone before, at least in this particular film. As far as we know, I mean, we didn't get something in the end of the film like we may have gotten in the original, where there were several other victims.
Yeah, actually, I noticed that. Maybe that actually is the reason why, when he came to get rid of Marion's body, he seemed a lot more remorseful. Maybe that's actually why this version, maybe it really was his first murder. As in the original, yes, it mentions that two other women went missing beforehand and they were never found. Well, until this happened, and those two are never mentioned in this version, as far as I remember.
Well, and around the same time that we are introduced to William H. Macy's character as Detective Arbogast, we are also introduced to Marion Crane's sister, who is whose name is Lila Crane, played by Julianne Moore. who, as we know, has has played in the Hannibal sequel of Silence of the Lambs as Clarice Starling. And so, what do you think of Lila Crane as a character?
Well, in this movie, she was quite good. In the original, I kind of didn't like her so much, not because of the first movie, more because of the things she was doing in the second one. That was where I developed a dislike for her character, but that's in the old movies. In this version, she was okay. Actually, I quite enjoyed the moment at the end when she kicked Norman during the final encounter. And I'm not sure if she did that in the original. I can't remember.
I don't think so. I think she was more the damsel in distress, and I believe the character of Loomis actually subdued her, and by that time the law was a little bit more involved. They didn't just go off half cocked. They had the law involved a little bit more in that particular aspect, because the sheriff dude was in the loop. So,
Yeah.
at least from what I remember of the 1960s Psycho, what do you think? I mean, to me, I feel like the ending of the original Psycho involved the police a little bit more, whereas these guys they just went to the hotel and checked it and on their own, not telling the sheriff that they were going to do this, and they just laid in wait to find some evidence that her sister and the money were still in existence somewhere. And they did happen to find a little bit of note, a book paper that had something like the 400,000 subtracted from $400,000, like near the toilet or something like that. So that was something that they took as evidence that she was in fact had been there. So and both of them had at least Loomis had seen the old woman up there, or at least the shadow of someone up in the home. And when they went to the sheriff, which if I remember correctly, trying to see Mrs. Chambers, I think, who was the wife of the sheriff in town. She was played by Anne Haney, and Anne Haney, I remember her being the social worker in Mrs. Doubtfire, as well as being the secretary for Jim Carrey in Liar Liar. So I've seen her in quite a few films, and though she seems to play, sometimes she plays rude characters, sometimes she plays the old spinster, but she tends to be a relatively decent actress. In anything that I have seen. I know I've seen her in other things, but those are the two that are off my mind that I remember her from. So, what do you think about the fact that the sheriff had said, "Hey, Norman found his mother and the dude that she was with," because evidently this was just a dude that she was with, and not even his real father. That he had found her with. What do you think about the whole thing that he found her and this dude just dead in bed.
The ones who saw the original know very well that that's a lie. uh, but
Well,
I guess
over time, I think the stories have somewhat changed. It's like one moment, uh, his mother is like the victim of the whole thing, and she's forced to evidently build this a motel for this dude, and she's also forced to use her body to get customers there. At least in one particular story. I think that was in Bates. I think that was in Bates Motel. But
I
supposedly,
think so as well. Yeah.
but supposedly there were some other girls that were missing from town in the original. So, um, what do you think about the information about the fact that his mother was dead and in the cemetery because the last dress she had worn was periwinkle blue?
Well, in, in I watched this version, I already knew how it would go, so it didn't really surprise me. And but yeah, in the original, it does well in this version too. For those who did the original, it does kind of steer the mystery. If really dead, then who is that woman that he was arguing with in the house who supposedly killed Mary and things like that? And yeah, if someone is watching the movie for the first time, don't knowing the original, then yeah, it kind of brings a good, really surprising twist and
Oh yeah, I think that the twist is always an interesting aspect of this film. I thought it was kind of cool that the modern day Lila actually was not just this woman that just let the man do everything. Where she was actually a woman unto her own self, and she was able to kick some ass. So
oh yeah, oh yeah.
uh, I thought that I thought that I thought that Julianne definitely brought a different side to the Lila character. She wasn't just some plain Jane sister who wouldn't do nothing to figure out what happened to her sister. Neither was the other one, but I think Julianne was um, a little bit more of a modern take, where she actually knew how to defend herself,
Oh,
whereas
definitely.
the other one was somewhat timid, and apparently women of the time did not necessarily uh, do much physical protecting of themselves.
Indeed, actually, I grew rather fond of Julianne Moore in Hunger Games, Mockingjay, and then I also saw her in a movie called The Seventh Son, and she was really good there. So I was rather delighted to see a younger version of her in this movie. And she was really very beautiful and very good portraying this character.
I remember her as uh, a character in Jurassic Park: Lost World, as
Oh
being
yeah.
the headstrong partner of Ian Malcolm, who already sent herself to Isla Sorna, Island B, or whatever, and she she is definitely a strong actress. I feel like, but I want to repeat something that my buddy Dane would probably say. A lot of times when Hollywood is looking for an actress, times if they couldn't get that actress, Julianne was often the second to be thought of. Whereas I almost think that she should be thought of first in a role, instead of being just the leading actress that is chosen second, over
I
anything.
agree.
I mean,
Yes,
they
she
in
was
Hannibal,
quite good.
they wanted Jodie Foster back, but they weren't able to get her. Well, they were able to get her, but only for a short, brief time, and the script was gone through so many times that she left the project. So they ended up having to go with their second choice, which was Julianne Moore, which ultimately she brought a different role to the film, but and brought it to what it needed to be, I guess, at that time. But she was not the first choice for the film. So,
Well, that is kind of unfair. She is pretty good.
well, and I think that she actually looks pretty smoking hot in some of the things that she's wearing, at least when she comes to the motel. But there are times where she's in roles, and I can't say for the life of me whether I would call her exactly hot. Sometimes she plays roles that are very unbecoming of a woman, so dumbs down her sexuality. So there are times I think that her prettiness can show, and I think that it shows somewhat in this particular film, and it shows that she can be be a spitfire, kind of, because right away she comes at Loomis like, okay, I don't have the time. Just tell me where my sister is. Kind of browbeat him a little bit, a bit like, and then suddenly they have somewhat of a relationship now, But
yeah, I think in the originals, in the second one, we find out that they got married, from what I remember.
well, for the most part, Loomis is there, and this is Viggo Mortensen. He played the Ranger in Lord of the Rings, and also he played in a horse movie called Hidalgo, from what I remember, and I think he also played in a movie called The History of Violence, kind of an action drama film. But I remember him specifically in those movies. I know that he's played in quite a few movies, but I remember him mostly as the ranger who guided the hobbits through, at least to a certain point, and ultimately he was in some of the final battles, and he ended up being like the king and whatnot in the very end of the films. So, what did you think about Mr. Loomis as a character?
Well, I guess he was also pretty much like the original version of the character, from what I remember. Well, he was okay. Did the same things he did in the original, I guess.
So there's really not a whole lot that we can say that really was that different of this film, except for okay, so the changes in the money of how much the car was, the money of how much was stolen, um, probably the adding of the dilating of the pupils, and the way in which Norman Bates was in fact apprehended by the end of the film. It was apprehended by he was apprehended by, or she was apprehended by both of them, and I thought it was kind of interesting how when she went into the basement, it wasn't this old, run-down basement with a floorboard where his wig and knife were hidden. It was in fact this like lab-looking like basement where where he did most of his taxidermy work apparently, and it almost kind of looked like the underground lair of Billy in Silence of the Lambs when Jodie Foster went down into the initial underground lair. Except here we don't see a bunch of moth heads or anything like that. So
Yeah, well, one thing I wanted to mention regarding the basement was the corpse trap of Norman's mother. In a way, I kind of missed the one they used in the original, which is very iconic, very recognizable with those dents in the skull, which you probably remember. But I mean, on one hand, I missed that this front they used wasn't as shocking as the original one, but then again, this one had all these spiders and stuff crawling over it, which did make it kind of off-putting. So, yeah, I kind of have mixed feelings about that scene.
I have mixed feelings about that scene too. But I did like the fact that he had her facing like all these like live birds or whatnot, and she when Lila came and swiveled the chair. I don't know why, but this scene I like. I have mixed feelings about it because I love both reveal scenes. The reveal in the basement, the one where you realize that okay, he's got his mother's dead body in that fucking basement, and this one is like not only is the body there, but it's still decomposing and it's got all these like spiders running all over it, well, not spiders. I think it might be just the same spider crawling up and then crawling down the half decomposed skull.
You're probably right, actually.
But the way that it crawled up and crawled down just kind of made me cringe just a little bit the first time that I watched this. So
it did.
And I think adding the bug to it, the spider, was an element that I don't think they did in the original. So I do think that particular scene, I think, was done.
Yeah.
Although I knew it would have been still done in like an old ass basement instead of a somewhat modernly built basement. Although technically they had set this in 1998, so I can understand why.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The original they were.
I don't know. What did you think about the basement? Do you think that it fit with the story, or do you think that they could have gone with an old basement, or do you think they do you think that that using that basement the way it was a good aspect of the film?
Well, it was definitely different from the one in the original, but I didn't mind the difference myself. I guess they did want to change a few details after all, and yeah, it makes sense that they showed us where Norman was doing all his taxidermy and stuff. I found it okay.
Okay. And ultimately, we have a similar a similar thing at the end here, where we get a psychologist who basically tells them that, hey, we did finally get through to him, but we got the whole story from his mother, because apparently he no Norman no longer exists, and it's just his mother, a mother. And then we get the whole officer comes in and says, he says he's got to chill. Do you think we can give him a blanket? And we hear the voice of his mother, explaining that she finally had to put him away, because otherwise he would have said something and trying to tell them that a little old lady murdered that girl or whatever, So she couldn't have that happen, could she? So, and word for word, I think there was a moment where there was a fly that was on its hand, and she was saying, "I won't even attempt to swat that fly."
Yeah, I think that line was in both versions from what I
And
remember.
I don't know why, but the music that was going on between through this particular scene, I don't know. It was distracting. I hate to say this about Danny Elfman, but it's very possible that the music in the background during this whole scene was not needed as to be that loud. Or I don't know. Did you hear it louder than the words?
Yeah, it was a bit louder than it should have been, and also I noticed this iconic instrumental track that we have in both movies. In the original, maybe I remember it wrongly, but I think in the original they used it in the intro, in the shower scene, and maybe in other scenes, but I think it wasn't used as much as it was in this movie. Maybe it was a bit overdone here and used in some scenes where it wasn't really necessary. But
Okay.
yeah.
Let's look at our favorite scenes, shall we? What was one of your favorite scenes from this remake that maybe was done better than the original? What do you think?
Well, I guess it would be the final encounter with Norman when Lila kicked him, which wasn't in the original. I think that was pretty cool. Then uh, I also like the fact that in the shark scene it looked a bit more realistic, and we see the wounds on Mario's back, and when Arbogast is falling down the stairs, those images we see, and
And I would have to say that my favorite scene, one of my favorites is.
glitch.
Sorry about that. All right, so I'll say my favorite, and then we'll come back.
Dave, I can't see you or hear you.
How about now?
Okay.
You can see me now?
Yes, what happened?
I have no idea. But in any case, I guess Norman did. I guess Norman's mother didn't want you to say exactly what your favorite scenes were.
Nice one.
But
Yeah.
Go ahead. You were talking about the staircase scene with Arbogast.
Yeah, it was like I said before. It was made. It was portrayed a bit more realistically than in the original, which was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I like the shower moment. The fact that it looked realistic, but I also like that dilating pupil adage because to me, when you see her eyes just turn dead, you know, that whole, because when someone dies, the life goes out of their eyes, and your pupils they either grow small or large, depending upon the reaction or whatnot to being deceased. So. And I think that it's a little bit more lifelike when you see her life go from her, and the way her eyes just kind of stared there for a moment. I mean, you didn't see her eyes. I don't think on the floor like that in the original.
Yeah, good point. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly how it was in the original.
She sank against the back of the shower, and okay, you saw her eyes a little bit glancing downwards, but you didn't get to see much of her after that, and you wondered whether she had been stabbed or not. There were no marks on her body as Norman was dragging her body out. So that's one of the things that I had against the original Psycho. Though it was a very good murder scene with camera movements, it was also hard to sell when you saw no marks on her body. So
yeah, actually, in the original, that wasn't very realistic either. But again, like I said about the Arbogast scene, like that probably weren't easy to portray back 1960 without literally doing something like that to a person.
Oh yeah, and I would have to say that my other favorite scene, even though I may not entirely like the location of the basement, I liked that reveal of her turning the body of his mother around, and just seeing that spider crawl all over the still decomposing body. Effective. So
Yeah.
That I will say. But other than that, it, I feel like they made it boring because they shot it shot for shot. It's not that it's not an interesting film. I thought it was, well, like Wikipedia says at one point they describe it as being an experiment of a remake, and I like those words. Someone said that it was an experiment, and according to one favorable take came on the film from an LA Weekly retrospective article published in 2013, in which writer Verne stated that the film was misunderstood as a commercially motivated film when it was, in fact, an experiment, and this was the reason for the poor reception. Verne concluded that experiments don't always have to work to be worth doing. So.
Well, that's an interesting point. Although like I said before, I don't think this movie deserves uh, all the bad news that you say it seemed. I think it was pretty good. The only big issue I had with it was, as I said, the actor they cast to play Norman. I really think they should have chosen someone who gave more of the wine that Anthony Perkins would give in the original. Especially because I had the kid from Psycho 4 on my mind, which uh, uh, whenever Norman appeared in this movie, I was thinking how that guy would have probably done this better. But
Right. So at the 1998 Stinkers Bad Movie Awards, the film was cited as one of the 37 dishonorable mentions for Worst Picture, and Universal Pictures received the Founders Award for even thinking the movie-going public would line up and pay to see a shot-for-shot remake of Psycho.
oh boy. Well, that's a bit harsh.
Yeah, they were quite harsh at the time, and I think they're still harsh to this day. I mean, there has been some favorable people who seem to like this version. Maybe not better, but at least tolerate it. I can tolerate viewing it every so often. And like I said, this was my third time watching this film, and it was your first. Were you entertained?
Yes, I was actually. I was watching it. I was really excited to see how they did this, how they did that with the technology they had at that time, which by then was much better than what they had in 1960. So I was really looking forward to seeing how particular scenes are going to be, how they were made here, like the shower scene, the staircase scene, the basement scene, things like that.
Okay. Well, I was entertained by watching this again, if not anything for the nostalgia factor for seeing any kind of Norman Bates. Although I prefer the Anthony Perkins version of Norman Bates. I do not
Of
think
course.
that Vince Vaughn was Norman Bates in any sense of the word. But
Yeah, like I said, I don't think he's generally a bad actor, but not for this role. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. I mean, it. I guess I would like to see them possibly regurgitate Psycho and see if they could um, do it differently in the future and see what kinds of things they could, make it different. I wouldn't mind another remake of a Psycho at least to see what kind of talent to they could bring to this if they wanted to um, go ahead and try to see if they could make it better than this film. Uh, Obviously, they got a lot of flack for trying to remake Ghostbusters, so but yeah, I would love to see what they could do now in this day and age. And what do you think? Do you think that they could eventually like try their hand again if someone had the guts and the nerve to do another remake of this? I mean,
Yes, I do think it would be interesting. There are some things that could be uh, done much better in this day and age. It definitely would be interesting to see.
well, yeah, it's been about 20 years, and I'd say that remakes often happen within like 10 years of each other, sometimes 15. So it's definitely possible that they could come up with something different. But in any
Well,
case,
indeed.
as Norman would say, a boy's best friend is his mother. So I think that's
Well,
all the.
sometimes, yeah.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to add to this film?
Mm, I'm not sure. All the only thing I think I can add is that I actually have several more owls in my house. What you saw earlier isn't all that I have, but none of them are stuffed. None of them were alive at one point.
Well, get on that. You need a couple of creepy owls. At least
Uh,
maybe we can make your room look like the parlor of Norman Bates.
Oh yeah, you didn't tell me what is the actual reason why you find owls creepy.
No, I just found those owls creepy in the in the in the parlor scene because it's one thing if there were like all these stuffed birds of like different species, but of the
Yes.
same kind of owl, of the same kind of
Oh,
owl, that was a little creepy, to me, I guess.
mm,
It was just a feeling that I had. I mean, I mean, why would you obsess about like stuffing owls? You know,
whew.
who chose like that specific animal to have more stuffed creatures of in that parlor?
Oh,
You know,
yeah. I guess I see the point. Like it could make you wonder why he would prefer to do it with owls over any other birds.
yep.
But yeah, as long as it's done with birds or other animals that were found, then it's okay. But if someone kills an animal only in order to do that, then I would have a serious problem with that person.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, you don't really want to hear about animals having to have been murdered just to be on screen or something like that. I mean, uh, times you want to see that message. No animals were hurt during this production. So.
Definitely. Definitely.
But in any case,
I
I think that's all the time that we have for today, folks. So, but you don't have to believe us. This is just our take on the film. But I would suggest go out and watch the film yourself, and then you can decide if you want to hate on it or love it for just these reasons. So, but I would say at least move out from your grandmother's or mother's basement before you do so. So, take care, ladies and gentlemen. And next week, we are going to, I think this is finished our Psycho journey. This was the last film dealing with the, at least the initial films in the franchise of the Psycho. Although there is one movie that I suppose we could cover that has something to do with Ed Gein. But that we can save for another time. So stay tuned next week as we go on about a supposed sequel to, well, at least the first sequel. May not be the best sequel, but the supposed first sequel of I Spit on Your Grave. So stay tuned for more exciting film adventures of Boris and Dave, and hopefully you enjoyed our meanderings on this film. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Thank you.